Indian Times with Kevin and Leo. And for the first time, we have decided to
Oops.
we've
Knocked the table
decided to
over.
go Facebook Live. So we have been doing the show on the YouTube and also on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
So now we're going to be
Hmm.
uh, also incorporating Facebook Live. So it's an hour long show. So hopefully you like what we
A lot
talk
to
about.
talk about tonight.
Yeah, Facebook Live gives the
Yeah.
opportunity to actually get some feedback too.
We still got to do our intro though on for the SoundCloud
All right,
version. So,
let's start it up.
all right, here we go. Welcome to Indian Times with Kevin and Leo.
And I am Leo, and tonight we have a lot of different topics to talk about, and they're very controversial. So I think this is actually going to be a real interesting podcast tonight. So
Thank you for joining us.
yeah,
Yeah, certainly a lot going on. Yeah, a lot of kind of heartbreaking news for a lot of
yeah,
people, especially fans of acclaimed Native American Coeur d'Alene Spokane author Sherman Alexie,
yeah.
who
Me too. Me too's hitting home.
yeah, it really is.
Hitting home in Indian
Yeah,
country.
and hopefully it's all for the better in the end. But certainly it's painful right now to see this play out. If you don't know, I guess Sherman Alexie is the author of a number of books. He's the winner of the Carnegie Medal. He's the winner of the U.S. National Book Award. He's the author of The Lone Ranger and Tonto Fistfight in Heaven. And that's a collection of short stories that was adapted into the film Smoke Signals back in 1998. He also wrote the absolutely true diary of a part-time Indian. And last week, he became the subject of allegations of sexual harassment. Those allegations began actually with a article that appeared January 3rd in the comments section of a story about sexual harassment in children's publishing that appeared on the school library journal's website. About 5 anonymous readers claimed Alexie had harassed them. One person described attending a dinner with the author and a group of librarians during which the author spoke continuously about sex and showed the women his hotel room number. There are going to be some, not too many, but a few difficult things to talk about here. So just a little warning on that, but nothing too terrible so far. So anyway, another reader described being grabbed and kissed by Alexie without warning some 20 years ago. The story really picked up steam, though, last week when Seattle author and freelance journalist Litsa Dremosis, who describes herself as a former personal friend of Alexie's, began making posts on Twitter saying she is working with reporters from the National Public Radio to produce a story describing Alexie's abusive behavior toward women. To date, no victims of alleged sexual harassment have spoken publicly, either anonymously or otherwise, that I know of, against Alexie, though Dremosis told Indians.com on Friday that the NPR story was going to air soon. Now, for his part, Alexie has said, and he did issue a statement last week, in which he said that he is the victim of a smear campaign by Dremosis, and he describes her actually as a jilted former lover. And now Alexie is married, so apparently he had an affair with Litsa Dremosis. He says that Dremosis was angered by their breakup and has harassed him and his wife ever since. However, in his statement, he also apologized for his past behavior, saying, quote, "There are women telling the truth about my behavior." So, I debated talking about this tonight a little bit because of kind of the anonymous nature of the charges so far. But I think his apology, the fact that he's admitted to having treated some people badly and has apologized for this and said, as I quoted, there are women telling the truth about my behavior. I think all of that makes this fair game for a topic tonight. Yeah, it's a tough one. This Me Too movement obviously has kind of stormed the halls of power throughout America, ever since it
Yeah.
first claimed Harvey Weinstein.
Well, do you
So,
know what? Did you know that? Man, I can't think of his name for some reason right now. The LA Laker that just retired, the star, Kobe Bryant. So Kobe Bryant was just on the Oscars tonight
hmm
for a short film, animated film about basketball, and he won, him and this director. And I was in a room full of women, and the first thing that they said was rapist because he had, remember, he had uh, that incident with the woman in a hotel a long time ago, and he denied it. And then I think they actually even settled
Oh,
something, but his wife stayed with him. His wife supported him, and I don't know about Sherman Alexie and what's going on with him. I know that he has been like one of the prides of Native culture because of his fame and his excellent writing skills. And he may be uh, he may have let that power get to him and became this kind of person who is someone who makes women uncomfortable because he does step out of his marriage. And that's really sad, and I'm not sure where this is going to go, and I'm not sure what they're going to say about him if all he was doing was doing sexual innuendo towards women, or if he actually has like really harassed women, and if he's sexually assaulted women. I mean, usually when something like this starts, and this is the power of this, and it's actually a really good thing, is once this starts, then women don't feel like they're alone, and then other people speak up. So
yes, definitely.
it's a good
Hmm.
reality check to the men out there who have allowed their lust to overpower their ability to act like a human being,
Yeah.
and that's one of those things
Well, and
that.
I think it forces all of us to be more introspective and really look back at our behavior and how we not only treat each other and members of the opposite sex, if we're heterosexual, but also, how we think about them. How we think about um, other people in that way, and when you're talking about sex. So it's, I don't know. I mean, it's forced a lot of hard conversations, in families and in within couples. I think, that are good, that are important to have, and that really, I think, hopefully awaken us to, yeah, how we treat each other, and how we need to treat each other with more respect. I'm not innocent by any means. I don't know that anybody truly is, honestly. I mean, some of us want to act like we're these righteous, perfect human beings, but we're not. I mean, nobody is. It's we all have thoughts.
Right.
We've all done things that we're not entirely proud of.
Well,
So
you should tell the audience some of some of your
what?
lustful thoughts and some of the
Oh,
things you've done,
wait,
because right now is a good time.
that's a whole different
Because it's just between
show.
us. You know what I mean? It's just between the
That's
three of us,
whoever's
me and you and
watching.
the listeners. So you
Okay,
can confide in us. We're not going to gossip,
this
native,
is where the healing
because
begins, huh?
this is where the healing begins. Natives don't gossip. You can tell us
Oh,
all your dirty little secrets.
okay, okay.
And I do. I like to flirt.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, I have a good awareness of other people,
Hmm.
and I can usually tell if somebody is not, if they're not, or if they're feeling uncomfortable by me, and I usually like back off right away. But
Yeah.
I'm a flirtatious person, but there's a lot difference between flirtatious and sexually harassing,
Yeah.
and it's good
Hmm.
what's happening right now because I have an 18-year-old daughter,
Hmm.
and you have a daughter, and
Three. Yeah.
three daughters, and we need to realize that there is this inequality, and that women have been dealing with this for so long. It's
Yeah.
like it's like being native, and then you feel this inequality in America, but then as males, we can't even relate to the fact that we do have some entitlement, and we do have some societal um, privileges
Sure. Hmm.
that women don't have
Yeah.
because.
We're not being sexualized. We're not being,
Right,
just constantly
right,
objectified,
right, right,
by
right,
the media, by other sources as well. But we don't have to endure that, the cat calls, and just kind of this attitude of it being open season all the time. That
right,
it's okay to hit on us constantly. I mean,
yeah,
men don't have to deal with that. They just don't. Maybe a few. Maybe we're talking Brad Pitt or
right, right,
somebody
right,
like that.
right,
you know, um, so it's something I think that we really need to be more aware of, and
yeah.
so
And,
it's yeah.
and with with Sherman Alexie, it's not fully divulged like what all's happened, right?
Yeah.
So we
Hmm.
still don't know what's to come of this,
Hmm.
and if it's something that's going to fade away or if he's going to fade away.
Hmm.
I know his health has been pretty bad, and he had taken a break from some of his speaking tours and things like that. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure um, how this will
Yeah,
affect him
it's hard
as.
to say. I mean, there's certainly been a lot of people who've come out in support of him and really criticized, the anonymous nature of these allegations as they've appeared so far. Um, and some of those people I respect. I mean, I respect them all, but some of the people I know and respect.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
but here's the thing with that though. Okay,
yeah.
so um, you can't, just because you know one side of somebody,
Hmm.
not you can't vouch for what they've done in the
Sure.
past or what
Sure.
they've done
Hmm.
in other situations. Because for me, for instance, once I
Hmm.
got sober, I became someone who was really productive, really
Yeah.
positive. But before
Hmm.
that, I was a very dysfunctional person. So
Hmm.
people can see me now, and people could say, "Oh yeah, Leo used to act up, and he used to be crazy acting and this and that." And people are like, "No, not Leo. Like I know him.
Hmm.
He's an amazing person. He's did this and that for me." But you never know about the past situations of somebody, so you
Yeah.
can't really vouch for somebody, and you really can't tear somebody down just
Yeah.
because they're being anonymous. Because
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest problems with the rape culture and with victims of it is a lot of times when they go to court,
Hmm.
there's judges like there's that crazy judge out there who said that this woman should have kept her legs closed. I don't know if
Hmm.
you heard that story, but there was all these different stories about just these women that get basically attacked,
Yeah.
socially
Hmm.
attacked for coming out and reporting stuff that's happening to them, and
Sure.
that's a pretty sad thing that's going on. It's uncomfortable. Like
Yeah.
I can feel the tension right now as we talk about this.
Yeah. No, it's very
And that's why I
uncomfortable.
want you to tell us your secrets. You tell everybody. We're listening. We want to hear. You want to know. I'm
Some
not
things
telling
are better
mine.
left
They're
unsaid.
really left
And
unsaid. Okay.
this is certainly one of those
Yeah, and
occasions.
this isn't a laughing matter. We're teasing about ourselves, but this
Yeah,
is
no,
not a
we're not.
laughing
We're certainly
matter.
not laughing about the topic. It
Yeah,
just feels like this kind of thing. There needs to be a little bit of what's the word? Levity, maybe, because it
yeah,
is hard to talk about, but I
heavy.
think it's important to talk about. You know, yeah, I'm playing devil's advocate when I sit here and I say that there are people who have criticized the anonymous allegations because I agree 100% that we really have to first of all just ask the question. Did this happen? Are there others out there? And in my reporting, and some of this hasn't been published yet, and I won't go into too much detail, but I will say that there are a lot of people out there who say that he's kind of been a jerk for a long time in his public appearances, in his treatment of his fans. When people come to get his autograph and signing,
Mm,
after speaking. Uh, and that's really discouraging to hear that somebody doesn't have that kind of respect for their fans. But one of the allegations that's really been made, I think it's important to mention, is that he allegedly preyed upon people who are new in the industry, people who are new in film, people who are new in literature, and did things to them that were very inappropriate, grabbed them in ways that were very inappropriate. And then threatened them by saying he would end their careers
mm,
if they reported these things. I mean, and apparently there's a pattern of this that's happened. Um, it wasn't just a one-time thing; that this is something that he's done for many years. So we'll see. I mean, I guess I'm really been checking the National Public Radio website every day just to see, when they and if they publish this story that's been promised. So it's, I mean, but maybe if we don't even need that story in the end. I mean, it's, I've certainly heard from enough people just in my reporting. I've heard from enough people in the comment sections of so many articles on Twitter, on Facebook. People are starting to come forth now, in so many different ways, other than just these anonymous allegations that appeared in the comment section of a story that was published a month ago. I'm starting to hear things everywhere I look now. People are saying, yeah, I've seen this really awful, disrespectful behavior by him for many years now. Um, and so maybe we don't necessarily need that affirmation in the end that we don't necessarily need as somebody coming forth publicly saying, it happened to me and here's exactly how it happened. So, but I don't know. So many questions.
So we're seeing some Facebook Live comments,
Oh,
and this is the first time we've done Facebook Live while we're actually recording for the SoundCloud and for YouTube. So as the messages come in, we can try to kind of acknowledge them a little bit, but as we get going more, we'll be able to pay more attention to that because we'll have a better.
Hey Liz, hey Aunt Sheila.
We got aunts and cousins, and that's about it. Nicole.
Yeah.
I saw Nicole Bad on there a second ago.
Yeah.
She wanted me to tell my secrets. I don't have no secrets.
Yeah,
I don't.
right.
Look at his face.
We're going to give you a call-in number next week.
And you
face.
Can. Look at his face. See the innocence? No bad ever done in my life. Man, what else we got going on today?
Always plenty to talk about. So another positive thing I think that happened is this week is Indian Country Today relaunched. So back in September, the United Nations, which bought Indian Country Today from Tim Giago, kind of famed Walla reporter and publisher Tim Giago, bought it from him back in 1998 and has been running it ever since. They announced that they just couldn't continue to invest the kind of money that was required to keep the publication operating. And they said they were looking for buyers. So a few weeks later, this was back in September, but a few weeks after that, the United Nations announced that it was going to donate all of the assets of Indian Country Today to National Congress of American Indians, the largest intertribal organization in America. And last week, National Congress of American Indians announced that it plans to relaunch the publication and has hired a very respected longtime journalist, Mark Trahant, to be the editor. So that's quite an opening salvo, I guess, for the relaunch of this really kind of iconic, publication for Native people.
Yeah, it's well known.
So, definitely. Mm-hmm.
So I definitely look to them whenever I'm looking for Native news and seeing what's going on in the Native community. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important that stays alive, and I really appreciate Indians.com and what you do. That's where.
Yeah, and I had a good conversation with Mark actually right after this news broke last week, and he said very frankly that there's plenty of stories to go around. He doesn't see himself as a competitor to anybody really. In fact, they plan to give all of their content to tribal newspapers and radio stations and websites for free. All they ask is that the Indian Country Today name be put on those articles. So I thought that was really great. They want to see themselves as more of a news service. Rather than a standalone publication that holds all of its content within itself. So I thought that was really cool, and hopefully this works out. They plan to, fund this through primarily donations and grant funding. So yeah.
Renee Sansasi just chimed in, and she said that there's always risk for women in any situation, especially in professions where we are dependent upon others for publishing, etc.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's part of the issue too. How famous is Sherman Alexie? I mean, to Native people, absolutely famous. To non-Native people, a lot less famous, honestly. But what he is, I think, is, and this is fair to say, he's a gatekeeper. He has helped produce, certainly written screenplays for a number of movies now, and has a lot of power to decide, who gets roles in movies. I wouldn't be surprised if he has some power to decide, who gets book deals even. I'm sure there are publishers who come to him and say, hey, would you mind taking a look at this manuscript and let me know what you think? And I think that gives them a lot of power. And in that way, I think it's important to hold people like that accountable, people who have the power over others to say whether your work is going to matter or going to be heard or not. So,
Life
Liz
is even better.
Liz Hill says, "Really appreciate your broadcast. Live is even better." Hey, thank you, Liz.
So back to Sherman Alexie. I don't really
Yeah.
know what he's like in person, but I
Hmm.
remember when I was going back and forth to Standing Rock, there was a lot of people there who were considered public figures who were being widely viewed through social media, and some of those people were jerks. Some of those natives were jerks,
Hmm.
and if you didn't have a camera crew, or if you weren't somebody who was a leader or somebody famous, they would blow you off and they would treat you like you weren't nothing. And I remember a couple times when I went in there with some people, and we went up to someone who was maybe not famous, but famous to that um, situation, and we would go up to them and try to talk to them, and they would be like very dismissive. And me personally, I would take off right away. And then the
Hmm.
people that were still like trying to be around them and trying to talk to them, I'd be like, hey, what are you guys doing? Let's just go. Let's just like get around people that actually appreciate us. So
Hmm.
when I started going back and forth, I stopped trying to go to where the leaders were and talk to them about what they needed. I just went straight to the people in the camps, and I'm like, what do you guys need? What's going on? And then that's where I found the most information, and everybody was, really helpful and wanting to talk. But there was a lot of people frustrated. There was a lot of people frustrated that, oh yeah, these guys have got control over all this stuff, and they're handing out, they're picking over it and then handing it out and all this and that. There was a lot of different situations where people were really frustrated with people
Hmm.
who, once they got a little bit of power or a little bit of fame, just kind of turned out to be jerks. And that can show you somebody's true nature,
Hmm.
how they act once they have a little bit of success.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but another story that I wanted to talk about
Hmm.
was Kenya.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, okay, so there's a political candidate in Kenya. Let me see, what was his name? If I can find it here again. I don't know if I can say it right. His last name is Odinga. And
What's his
uh,
first name?
his first name is, let me find his first name. Rayala, I think. How do you pronounce that? Yeah,
Clue.
that's why I said
I'm gonna let you
Odinga. That's why I
fail
said,
all by
that's why I said
yourself.
Odinga. So in central Kenya,
Hmm.
there are these large ranches that are owned by whites, European whites, who basically did the same thing in Africa that they did in America and took the land. But now the Kenyans are becoming, they're this man is he's trying to become into power, and he wants to take the land back, and so there's a lot of controversy. And I actually have some European friends, and one of them was feeling like this was something that was a horrible injustice, and it's a cycle of colonism and all these other things. But um, I was actually on the side of some of the people who were talking about, well, give them a little plot of land and give them supplements and lease out the rest of their land for a minimal price. And this was actually Chase Iron Eyes was one of the people that was talking about that. And basically, um, what I told him was like, okay, what he's saying is basically like just reverse what has already been done, that's been done in a criminal way, and still let them be uh, live there, but not with all the resources that they took illegally. And so this actually became something that could be an alter reality here, even, if, like, let's say we have a native president and then they enforce the treaty laws, but my European friend was thinking that this was something that was really bad and really horrific. But there's a drought, there's huge droughts, there's land that's being overgrazed, there's a lot of problems in Africa. And when you get an African that comes back into political power in his own country, like, it's only natural to me, that is, it's only natural that he would want to um, right those wrongs, even if they're hundreds of years old.
Hmm.
And my first example that I gave was the Black Hills. Like, they want to pay us for the Black Hills because they know that that was a criminal act. They know that what they did not only was illegal as far as breaking contracts, but there was people murdered and killed, and there's so much trauma that happened over that. So much abuse and murder and rape and everything. And so, my opinion, if we had the opportunity to get our treaty lands back, like I would, if I was the person in charge, I would get all that treaty land back. And I would tell those people, like, I'm sorry, you moved on this land illegally, or your grandparents or your ancestors moved on this land illegally, but now you have to figure out what to do. Now you need to get your government to tell you how they can help you, you know. And if this, to some of you, if this sounds like something that um, is unfair, you got to realize, like, I'm native and I live this unfair life of being a native in my homeland and being homesick at the same time, you know? And so that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Similar, absolutely. I mean, it's so one of the things that's happened, I think, in a lot of tribes, at least tribes that can afford to do this, is tribes are starting to buy their land back. I certainly know that the Winnebago tribe has started doing that. And it's very controversial where it happens, you know. Up in Winnebago, there are a lot of white ranchers and farmers who, you know, have been on this land for generations, honestly. And to them, it's their land now. You know, I mean, they know that they're paying the lease payments, and they know that, you know, technically, I mean, you know, if you look at the actual lease on the land, I mean, their name is not on it. It still belongs to the tribe. But they feel like they have some, in a way, kind of squatters' rights to it. You know, that they've been there so long that they have the right to stay on that land. So it's a weird thing. I mean, yeah, it's a weird thing. I absolutely agree that the tribe has every right to buy that land back and move, you know, people off if they have some purpose for it. Even if they don't, I mean, honestly, but especially if they have some positive purpose for it. And I think that's right to do, and I think it's good for the tribe, you know, to start to bring all this back, you know, that once belonged to it. But you know, makes people angry, especially. I mean, and I can understand that anger if you've been living on this land for generations, and now somebody's coming in saying that you have to move off it. I mean, you know, I mean, that rings bells, obviously.
Yeah, but how'd your great grandparents get it in the first place?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, whose blood was spilled so you can go and say, this is my home now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you guys didn't get it by us. You know, and we did, like, we tried to welcome people in and help them, but then they were consuming so much that it became this thing where, okay, we have to, like, stop you now. And they're like, no, we're not going to stop, and we're not worried about what you think, because we can kill you.
Yeah,
we can kill all of you. And we didn't believe him, but you know, we're a testament to the resilience of being native, that we even exist now because of the genocide that happened. But you know, when I look at Kenya, that's all I think about is my people. You know. And so I don't feel like that person who's saying, yeah, we're going to take these ranch lands back, these families have prospered off of this land that's African land, you know, for centuries. And who knows what they did? Who knows what atrocities they did? Because, you know, a lot of Africa, there were people that were sold off into slavery, and they brought them here in other countries, and, you know, they were tortured and treated so horrifically that, you know, there's no rights there.
Yeah.
Not to me, at least. And I feel the same way about, and America is a melting pot now. You know, even in our own families. Yeah. So, like, I don't want to just try to rip everybody out of America and make this a 1% native country again. But I do think that we should get our treaty lands back, because you know, we signed to those. Even if we signed to them under duress, like, that should legally still stand. You know, those are documents, and we're in a government that works off of laws and documents and contracts, and those are legal binding contracts that we should still have rights on. And I think one day we will, but right now with the current administration, they're doing the opposite. Yeah. They're ripping things away.
So we're broadcasting here in Lincoln, Nebraska. That's where Leo and I live. And so we got a comment from Renee Sansosi I want to share real quick. She said, yes, we could all form a new tribe here in Lincoln and buy Lincoln out, and kick everyone off our land. that's, that's pretty radical. Yeah, us 12 Indians here in Lincoln, I think that we might have a hard time doing that. But
yeah.
certainly, I enjoy sitting here and ruminating about that possibility, and what that would look like. But
Well,
yeah.
that treaty land really is a
Hmm.
viable possibility,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
and so that's something that we could actually do. I mean, white clay is part of the Ogallala Nation, part of the Pine Ridge, you know,
Hmm.
reservation.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know that White Clay, Nebraska is actually part of that reservation, and it was taken illegally,
Hmm.
you know, and then it was used to exploit the despair of Ogalallas for over 100 years, and it just barely got shut down, you
Hmm.
know. And there's people out there, there's elders out there right now, and there's other activists out there now who are fighting to get the land back.
Yeah.
At the same time, we're also fighting to do some economic revitalization of the area as well.
Hmm.
So, you know, but like I said, with the current administration, there's a lot of issues.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
one, okay, there was 25,000 pages in total about these emails that were sent between about the from Bears Ears, the
Hmm.
Bears Ears um, that they just shrunk down, and what was it, Grand Escalante?
Yep. Grand.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Grand
these areas
Escalante,
were shrunk
like in
down,
Utah.
and Trump gave this really fabulous speech about I want to give this land back to the people and back to the tribes and blah blah blah, and everybody knew that this was not true. Everybody knew that
I,
there was.
you know, it wasn't true. How did you know it wasn't
Everybody
true?
knew there
Trump
was.
said it was true. Come
Everybody
on,
knew there was
man.
ulterior
Oh, he's
motives,
the
right?
president.
That they're reducing this down so that they can so that
Vroom, vroom.
they can pull these minerals out of this
Hmm.
out of the earth there, you know. And when I was talking about this on Facebook, I had somebody say, "Well, the tribes have been doing this, and they're mining and they're drilling and they're doing all this stuff themselves, you know, to make money on their own land," which I don't know if that's true or not. But this is not their land, and this is not the land of Trump's administration to give away, because this land isn't going to be mined by the government. You know, this oil isn't going to be sold off or given out by the government. You know, because if the government had opened this area up so that they can produce this oil, or extract this oil or extract this coal, then legally it's a property of the people,
Hmm.
and so then he would have to disperse it to the people free of charge, or for whatever, through the taxes is how they would pay for it. But that's not what's going to happen, and that's not what their plans are. Their plans are to sell this area to some of its corporate buddies, some of the energy companies, you know,
Hmm.
and go from there. But it's crazy how much evidence we've had against Trump administration about the extortion of America, and the fact that he's still in office and there's still people out there who support him. I mean, I have a couple people on my Facebook who are related through my daughter, and you know, just friends for a long time, that support Trump and think that Trump is amazing. Most of my friends on Facebook do not, because I do not. But you know, there's still a couple people that are related to me that, you know, through my daughter.
Yeah. No, I've certainly got some friends who support Facebook, or not Facebook, who
Yeah, I
support
support
Trump,
Facebook.
but
No, I don't support
I
Facebook.
don't,
Is
definitely. But we're on Facebook
necessary. It's a
nevertheless.
necessary evil.
um, yeah, so yeah, I just think he's a train wreck, and but at the same time, he's very smart about feeding the base, and giving the base red meat whenever they want it. And it's something I hate to, it's not a failing, but certainly Democrats have had a harder time doing that. Um, and I'm proud of that. I mean, I'm proud that we don't, just gratuitously feed our base just to get the base fired up and say stupid crap, that we know is going to piss off, conservatives and Republicans. I mean, I'm proud of that, and that's something that I think should always stay that way. But he's certainly, become a master and proven himself a master of igniting, this right, kind of a seething hatred. I think a lot of people have of liberalism in America, and minorities even. I hate to say it. I mean, but yeah, I do think he's trying to incite at least stoke the flames of racism in America in a lot of ways.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah. So
you know what? I just registered to vote too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got a card in the mail saying that I'm a registered voter now.
Big boy now.
First time in my life.
What the hell, dude? This is the problem right here, man. Come on. Liberals don't freaking vote. I mean,
who knew though,
I'm proud of you. Haley, I'm proud of you. But you should have done it sooner.
I didn't know I could, actually.
Oh, okay. Sure.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. I'm a felon. I don't know if the guys know that on my podcast, and if you do and you don't like it, you can turn it off right now. No, don't turn it off. Don't turn it off. We need our 3 listeners or our 4 listeners. His aunt, cousin, Renee,
who have paid a generous amount. They walked away from their iPads a long time ago.
I just barely learned as an adult about credit and about real estate and this is stuff that I only learned because I got put in a situation where I was around people that could teach me. But my family didn't know. Nobody in my family voted. I haven't voted, but now I can vote, so I'm going to. And we do need more than 2 parties. We do need more than the Republican and the Democrat, because the Democrats are losing, but the Democrats get paid just the same way the Republicans do. Yeah. And that's not just from their salary, from working for the government.
Yeah, we need a party that isn't so beholden to special interests. You know? And I mean, somebody aired a really good idea recently. So much of what our political system is based upon is just political donation. And trying to really make our election system so it's only government and tax funded, so that we can really restrict the power of those special interests. And our politicians don't constantly have to run for re-election. I mean, shit, Trump, hired his next campaign chief about a week ago. Right. So he's already running for re-election, and that's just unfortunate that our lawmakers can't and won't focus on policy. Instead they're always trying to get to the next election. So
yeah, but Trump doesn't have any kind of real chance of winning again, I don't think. I mean, I said that the first time.
Yeah, we said that the first time, and we were all sitting there that night, and I was in the newsroom at the time at the Lincoln Journal-Star, and just to see the faces just go down. Is this really happening? We have to understand that there are powerful forces in our country that were really upset by the administration of Barack Obama, and that we underestimated that. So, and we shouldn't. So, but yeah. Anyway, I want to talk about another topic. Sort of on the same lines, Russian trolls, and apparently how some Russian trolls exerted some influence on the No DAPL movement. So last week, the U.S. House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology issued a report claiming that Russian trolls had exploited the No DAPL movement in order to undermine America's energy sector. Those trolls allegedly posted on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook using accounts with names like Native Americans United and Blacktivist. One such post was made November 25th, 2016, the day of an especially brutal clash between activists and law enforcement that resulted in the serious injury of 2 activists, including a Navajo woman who was struck in the face with a weapon at close range, and a non-Indian woman who nearly lost her arm. The post that Blacktivist made that day read, "We're about to celebrate Thanksgiving and tell school children we made peace with Native Americans while DAPL protesters are being tear-gassed." So I thought it was kind of an interesting, sort of twist on the whole Russian troll sort of debacle that this country has found itself in, that the Trump campaign benefited from. But apparently the Russian trolls, want to see the Dakota Access Pipeline hindered and stopped as well. I suppose because This is sort of the theory, by this congressional committee that if they can hamper, sort of progression of American infrastructure, then they'll benefit from that. The Russians will benefit from that. So,
Hmm.
but it's unfortunate that no DAPL had to kind of get wrapped in that this week. I don't think it'll last very long. I don't think anybody's questioning, no DAPL and their involvement in any of this whatsoever. But yeah, anyway.
So what do you think that means? So you were saying that they were actually putting like propaganda out in favor of the natives?
In favor of the natives, yeah.
Hmm.
It's really questionable as to how influential these fake social media accounts they created were. The report that we did showed that they only had something like, I'm going to get the number wrong here. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but something close to about 1,000 likes and retweets and shares, compared to say like the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, which was posting regularly and regularly getting up to 3,000 retweets and shares and likes on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So I don't know if they had that much influence, but yeah, it's just interesting to know. And something I think we got to be vigilant of. I just think it's happening all the time now. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but obviously I'm not terribly being paranoid. That there are these Russian trolls sort of trying to move things and trying to influence things, all the time. And honestly, if I'm sitting here beside you, I'm sort of wondering if you're a Russian troll and whether you were planted here, even to try to
Spy.
sway our discussion, in favor
Yeah.
of whatever Russian
Like that
interests
new movie.
you represent.
Like that new movie that just came out with the
Yeah.
with the girl. What was that movie called?
I don't know. The Sparrow, I think
The
we were
Sparrow.
talking. Yeah,
The Sparrow. Where she's like this.
mhm.
I don't know if it's Russia, but
Russian, yeah,
Russian.
a spy.
Russian spy
Yeah.
who's trained to seduce
hmm
men and kill them and blah blah blah. And it's Jennifer
Lawrence.
Lawrence. And I don't know if you guys know about Jennifer Lawrence, but
Yeah.
she made a movie out in space with this guy. I can't remember what it was called, but they were out in this pod. And
Passengers or
they
something,
weren't.
like
Yeah,
travelers or something.
they weren't
Anyway.
supposed to wake up, and then they
hmm
woke up, and blah blah blah. But then I guess she was out in Hawaii shooting one movie, and the natives there told her and the cast that, hey, these stones up here on this hill are sacred stones, and please be careful around them. Don't bother them. And she went up there on this hill, and these are her own words. She got interviewed later with the guy who was her co-star, and he's looking at her like, "Oh man, you sound like a jerk right now." Like the way he was looking at her was like, it was horrible. And
hmm
so she's bragging on this show about scratching her butt on these stones and actually making one of them come loose and roll down the hill, and how all the tribal natives from Hawaii were like horrified by what she had done, and she's sitting there laughing on the show.
hmm
So I try to avoid her movies now.
Yeah, I do too.
Just
I
because
agree.
that just shows her true character, and
Yeah.
she's becoming really famous. She's becoming
hmm
really successful.
Yeah, I really enjoyed her work up until now. I mean,
Yeah.
Winter. What was it called? The Winter in the Winter Bones Winter, something like that. It was an indie film. It was one of the first things she did that kind of made her famous. But excellent film. And I thought her work on the Hunger Games was
Hunger Games.
really
That's
well
what
done
she's
as well.
That's what she's famous for.
Yeah, that's her big.
That was her claim to
Blockbuster.
fame. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like those shows too, but
Yeah. This brings up kind of an interesting thing I want to talk about real quick. Is
Okay.
can we separate the artist from the art? And this is something that's come up in the whole Sherman Alexie debate, because he is one of the most read Native American authors ever, and teachers, especially high school teachers and
college.
university teachers, regularly include his novels, in their curriculum. And obviously, he was banned for a while too, so that's kind of an interesting thing. But I've seen a lot of posts from teachers who are wondering, what do I do next? I've got this class coming up in a few weeks, and he was, kind of a centerpiece of my whole curriculum, and can I include him in my curriculum? Should I include him in my instruction, or should I just go out and find somebody else? And my first instinct in all of this was to say, 100% go out and find other authors, because there are some amazing native authors out there that
I
haven't been
think
discovered yet, and some that have, but not enough.
I think you keep it real. I think you
Yeah.
show your syllabus like you did, but then you tell them, okay, this dude's been harassing women
Yeah.
for a long time, and he's somebody who's an oppressor,
I
sexual
was going to
oppressor.
say that was my second. Yeah, that was my second sort of instinct.
But this
yeah.
is how good his work is, and this is what you need to focus on, like
Yeah.
this style, and listen, and see how this is done, and look at his story, because this will tell you what you can do and what you shouldn't do.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's pros and cons to it, but yeah, they should also look into other writers as well.
Yeah.
Did you know I'm a writer?
No.
You didn't know that?
I mean, I've seen some writing you've done, but I haven't seen like a creative, like a non or fiction or whatever.
I have two 300-page. They're about 300-page, not exactly 300-page fiction books are rough drafts that I've written.
Yeah.
For books.
Well, I mean, you should read them on the show in their entirety. We'll do that next episode. 300 pages.
I'm serious.
I know you're serious. Yeah. No, I've written some stuff too.
Did you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's how I got into writing, was through fiction.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Did you get any of it published?
Not really.
You
I
still
wrote
have it?
a master's thesis that got technically published, but no, not to any sort of wider audience.
So is it fiction?
Yeah. Oh, no, not my master's thesis.
No,
That's
I meant
nonfiction.
I meant your writing that you did.
Yeah, I did some short stories. That's what kind of inspired me to become a writer, was, some sort of short stories I wrote when I was in high school, that actually, won an award for me when I was in high school.
Cool.
And but I've always loved writing, so it wasn't like, anyway. But I had pretty low self-esteem back then, and I never pushed it, and but that inspired me to do it, and so.
Are you thinking about going back and pursuing that?
I've always wanted to. Yeah.
You should.
Yeah, and I want to.
So what do you think? Do you think he should pursue writing? And do you think I should maybe... Okay, here's one of my problems.
I do write, but...
Here's one of my problems.
Fictional writing.
Fictional novel writing. Novel. Can you write novel?
Could I? Yeah. I think so. I don't know if it'd be any good.
My problem is, okay, so my stories, people have told me, are really, really good, but I don't have a lot of dialogue in them. So I'm basically telling a story from beginning to end. There's a little bit of dialogue just because somebody told me that, but I don't have enough dialogue in it, and my grammar in it is not good. And so I was thinking I'd probably find a ghostwriter to actually go in and redo my books for me and keep my story, but redo it so that it's a little bit more entertaining. Somebody did that for me, actually. A college student one time took one chapter and redid it, and it seemed really great. Like, I loved it. And so the woman, I was going to ask her to do the whole book, but I didn't have any money, so I couldn't pay her, and she didn't want to do it for free. So the book just sat on my shelf.
Yeah.
They're getting old now. I've had them for years, like almost 10 years now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a great time to throw it out there and see what happens. I mean, it's
Nicole says comics.
Comics.
Picture books. All right, picture books, Nicole.
No big words, nothing above 2 syllables.
That's funny. So Nicole Bad and I grew up together, right? And when I was younger, I used to think I was kind of cool, But now I'm a humble man. But when I was young, Nicole took it upon herself.
Humble men don't say they're humble men, by the way. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Nicole took it upon herself to show me and tell me and remind me that I'm goofy.
Yeah.
Like pretty much every time I seen her. So, but I love her for that, though. She kept me humble.
Sure. Yeah.
She either kept me humble on purpose or I just annoyed her. Either way. Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate you.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's I think you can separate the artist from the art, but if you're talking about the artist and their work, and I think this is true of a lot of artists in our society and other societies, there's a lot of troubled artists. I mean, a lot of times that's what kind of inspires their craft, is a troubled childhood, and certainly Sherman Alexie fits that bill to a T. I mean, in his own memoir, he talks about sexual abuse as a child, having endured that, and he canceled his recent book tour from that memoir, actually, because he said he had to deal with some mental health issues. So by his own admission, I mean, he's suffered and he's dealing with things like PTSD and depression, I think. So it's a but if you're going to talk about those things, especially with students, especially with high school students or college students, you have to talk about their behavior. If it's been unethical or even illegal. We wait. I guess we await kind of word on what these specific allegations against Sherman Alexie are, but you have to talk about that with them. And include that in the discussion because it adds a whole nother layer to it that I think is important to talk about. But I don't know that necessarily means you have to go burn his books. I mean, I don't like this idea of people talking about, but it's up to them. It's up to everybody. Do whatever you want to do, absolutely. But when you talk about burning books and throwing books away, honestly, that makes me a little nervous. I mean, it's there are a lot of very troubled people who create beautiful art, and I mean, at least I was sort of raised that we walk a road where we're not entirely good and we're not entirely evil. We it's called the Red Road, and we're just common beings. We're just Ikchewi Chasha, common man, and none of us are perfect in any way in that regard, but we do our best. We try to not hurt people and try to walk in a way that we believe is in line with our beliefs. But we fall. We stumble and we fall, and hopefully we get back up. And I think we should forgive each other too. Whenever proper amends are made. So I don't know that that's happened in this case yet, honestly, but yeah.
Yeah, I think Standing Rock really helped to give people hope and
Yeah.
make them feel like the society that we live in that's been so suppressive for so long
Mm-hmm.
isn't the end. Like, this isn't what has to happen. This isn't what has to
Mm-hmm.
be. And I think people have learned to, with that hope, learn to actually evolve and bring themselves into the desire to become better and the desire to become more than what they um, have been brainwashed to think that they can be. And
Yeah.
when I talk to people about being successful, a lot of times I tell them about you gotta like look outside of yourself. You can't just decide, okay, I just want to make my life to be where I have all these luxury items or all this fame or whatever your thought of success is. You have to think about happiness because that's where success comes from. And a lot of times you can gain your own happiness if you can go outside of your own self-pity and look to helping other people. And that's what happened with Standing Rock. A lot of people came there broken, came there dysfunctional, and they were part of something bigger than them, something that was great, something that brought hope, and it's still happening.
Yeah.
We still see it with, with our brother Manape.
Mm-hmm.
He's still running resistant camps and he's still fighting this battle, over in Louisiana. There's a Bayou Bridge pipeline and water. They have the Water is Life. It's in French or Creole. Resistant camp there, as well, and that's a native camp, and well, it's all races really, but I really think that change happens by not just holding on to the past, but actually being willing to evolve. I was reading on virtues,
Mm-hmm.
and it said, you can learn virtues.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn to be someone who lives a good life and lives a good lifestyle, and that's what I'm striving to do.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of natives are right now. A lot of
Absolutely.
natives are realizing that seventh generation prophecy is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people are trying their hardest to make it.
Yeah. Yeah. That said, I mean, there does need to be a recognition of truth. And this is a harsh word and it's a scary word, but there has to be a reckoning, and there has to be a time when people who've hurt other people
Pay for
are
their
made
sins.
to make amends. So I mean that's tough to say, but yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they have to be acknowledged for what they've done. And
Mm-hmm.
the Me Too movement has definitely brought light on a lot of predators. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was younger, I used to get bullied a lot. So whenever I come across a predator, I would definitely like challenge them,
Mm-hmm.
and combat them.
Mm-hmm.
So because I could feel that personal feeling of my history that
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to take out on those people instead because I was big now.
Jeez.
So a lot of predators didn't like me around
Yeah.
because I would
Mm-hmm.
definitely check them.
Yeah.
But now I'm trying to fight battles on a larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
I think we both are really. I think a lot of us are,
Yeah.
and that's a great thing. That's a
Mm-hmm.
great thing about our society right now is we can see so much wrong that we were trying to like make a
Mm-hmm.
difference now.
Yeah.
And
There's a nice statement here I want to share from Renee
okay,
Sansosi.
good.
Art is healing, but at times artists are not healthy. Sherman needs to address his own issues and not continue to harm others. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well said. Thank you.
Yep, very well said.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got anything else going on in the news?
In the news, no, not really. I've
No.
been kind of, just kind of focused on kind of that issue for the main this week. So,
Mm.
how about you?
Not really in the news.
Mm-hmm.
I filed a lawsuit against the Lincoln Police Department for
Mm-hmm.
what they did
Mm-hmm.
to my family. So I actually going to send out the summons this week. So it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't hit the actual news yet. I haven't like released the information myself.
Yeah.
But once I send it to once I send the summons to the Lincoln Police Department and to the guys that I'm naming in it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure we'll hear about it a little bit more publicly. So on Thursday, I filed my lawsuit. I did it pro se, which means I did it myself. And then on Tuesday, the city inspector came to my property and actually came to inspect my property.
Oh, nice
They
timing.
didn't say it was.
That's
'cause
just
of
a
that.
coincidence.
Yeah, it's
So,
just
I mean,
coincidence. That's
yeah,
what
that's
it
all
was.
that is.
It's just coincidence. Yeah.
Don't read too much into it.
No. Yeah. Because really, conspiracy stuff doesn't really happen.
It doesn't.
No,
No.
government doesn't
No.
do that.
No.
Because they're our government. They represent us. They're good to us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, life is good, and I'm going to keep living it as long as I
Mhm.
possibly can. And we're going to keep doing these shows as long as we can. It's getting warmer out now, so we're going to eventually move it into a teepee. We keep talking
Mhm.
about it, but we haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
So our backdrop will be a teepee soon. That'll
We'll
be
see how
awesome.
that goes.
Yeah.
I think it'll be good, but yeah, it's going to pose a whole lot of technical problems. I think that being in this controlled environment doesn't. So, but that's good.
Like sound?
Yeah, sound, lighting. Are we gonna have a fire in there? You think, or
I'd like to. I'd like to have
Yeah.
a fire going.
uh-huh.
That crackling will probably,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, as we go, as we evolve, you're also learning more editing
Yeah,
tricks.
yeah. I'm getting a little better here and there.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these things I already knew, but hopefully I'll get better.
Yeah. And eventually we're going to be like adding clips in and
I
adding
added some
music.
clips in the last one.
Did you?
Yeah, on YouTube anyway.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I had a little, some photos that I added from the Parkland, Florida
Cool.
school shooting, and then added just a short video clip toward the end of the video where you said, "One of these days we're going to add video." And so I just added a little clip of video just to say, "There it is, man. Get what
Good,
you
I
asked
need
for."
to watch That shows you how much I watch my own show.
Well, I don't watch them all back either. I mean, just that's the way it is sometimes.
Yeah.
We're busy. So
You're
anyway,
a
but
very busy person.
yeah. So are you.
Yeah, I am kind of a busy person
Yeah.
too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Anything else?
well, so there is Senator Tom Brewer,
Mm-hmm.
who,
Oh yeah.
he actually
Mhm.
bought a huge canvas for the Nebraska State Penitentiary natives for their sweat lodge, because okay, so if you didn't know this, the NSP, which is Nebraska State Penitentiary, and LCC, which is Lincoln Correctional Center, prisons in Lincoln, and probably in Omaha and maybe Tecumseh as well. Well, these prisons have lost a lot of their funding and a lot of their ability to practice the sweat lodge ceremonies. And so they're not getting the materials they need, they're not getting the wood they need, they're not getting the stones, they're not getting the ability to actually um, go and pray on a
Yeah.
regular basis. So if any of you want to help, you can either get a hold of me, you can get a hold of NSP or one of these prisons if you're close to them yourself, and actually try to help. Like, try to, if you can get access to some wood, help them that way. If you can buy them a tarp, help them that way. If you can buy, or if you can get stones, not buy stones, but if you can find sweat lodge stones that they can use, let us know, or take them to them yourself. You can just call the chaplain at whichever prison you're closest to and help them, because a lot of those natives in there, when they get locked up, they want to make a change. They do, and one of the best ways for them to be able to start that is to actually go into those ceremonies and start to just change their mindset, but through prayer, through meditation, through these positive red road practices. So we need them. We need
100%.
we
Yeah.
need those men and women that are in these prisons. I didn't name York, but York as well. We need these men and women in our lives, and when they come out, we need them to feel grounded, and that's what the sweat lodge helps them to do. Some people choose church, some people choose mosques, but the sweat lodge is something right now that's really needing some support. So
Yeah.
if any of our listeners out there have the ability to help them, do so, please.
Absolutely. Well said. Yeah. I just think that Native culture is essential, oftentimes, to recovery for Native people, whether it's from, whether they're in prison or whether they're in treatment. That I rediscovered my spiritual practices when I went to treatment back in 1996, and had really kind of drifted away from it for many years up until that point. I was raised in a traditional home, though. I mean, certainly not like it was the first time I connected to my culture, but I drifted away for many years, and got into drinking and smoking weed and that sort of thing in college, and drifted away. And but I rediscovered it in treatment. I went to a treatment program near Bear Butte, actually, and they had the sweat lodge there, and boy, just finding, being in that place, being in that lodge with the rocks and the heat and the steam and the prayers and the singing, just reminded me of who I was, and who I wanted to be, and that's something that I know I couldn't have gotten from just AA. Now I'm not dissing AA. I love AA. It was a huge part of my recovery, but as a Native person, that ceremony spoke to me and touched a part of my soul that AA just never could. And I think it's true for so many Native people who are in treatment or prison. So if you can help, absolutely.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in and
thank you.
supporting us and listening, and thanks for the feedback, everyone.
Yeah.
We really appreciate doing this. We enjoy doing this, and I enjoy the opportunity to be able to speak, with Kevin to all of you and share this information and our opinion on it. So thank you, and
thank you.
Doksha.
Absolutely. Doksha. Good night.